Hello, Pedro.
Hi.
Thank you for coming, and it's great to see you again.
Good to see you too.
And thank you for sharing with us your experience with the topic of innovation. We have a few questions for you. Hope you can help us with the answers. So first of all, we want to know what's your objective with your company Exago?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Great to share some of the ideas and some of the stuff that we've been doing at Exago. In particular for this theme of hotels, which is something that is quite fascinating. So let me tell you, at Exago, we believe that organizations, they have a huge potential. They have their people. And we believe that within organizations, and hotels in particular, there's a lot of hidden potential, a lot of insight, a lot of ideas, a lot of knowledge that resides within the employees and all the stakeholders. And all that potential, all that resident potential is quite powerful to solve business and strategy challenges. In most companies, they don't do much about it, okay? So most companies, they just use people to do their job description. And we believe at Exago that, if you use the right tools and software and services, if you shake things up with the right tools and the right software and services, you can actually extract a lot of those ideas and those insights and that knowledge to solve very, very specific business challenges and therefore innovate around very specific business challenges. So we at Exago can help large companies to build innovation initiatives using the collective intelligence of the company.
So, you have and have had a number of clients within the service and hospitality industry. Tell us, what were the biggest surprise moments on your, in your point of view?
Well, I've had some clients in the hospitality industry, and I'm a sort of a frequent user or a consumer of the hospitality industry. So I would say that my biggest surprise in the industry and in the sector is that I feel that it's a sector that is full of orthodoxies, full of rules, full of... the feeling that I have is that it's an industry that hasn't changed much in the last 100 years. So it might sound unfair if you're in the industry, but I would say that from a consumer perspective, it's an industry that hasn't changed much. And it is governed by a set of rules that doesn't change, a set of orthodoxies that are very rigid, very strict. It's the way we do things here in the hotel industry. These are the rules, okay? It's not to say that rules are bad, because, it seems that they work. But the fact is that the world is changing so fast, that the world is changing, the consumer is changing so fast, that I feel that the speed of change of the world and the consumer is faster than the speed of change of the hotel industry. The other surprise that I had in the hotel industry is that most of the big changes in the hotel industry, they were not made by people in the hotel industry. So they were brought by people outside of the industry. They were brought by technology disruption. They were brought by disruption in consumer interaction. So you see a lot of communities being built by technology. You see a lot of technology enablement that pressures the hotel value chain, such as group buying, disintermediation of elements in the value chain. And so the big changes and the big rule breaking in the hotel industry I feel that is not being, owned by the hotel industry itself. It's being brought by external stakeholders.
So in your point of view, what type of innovation is available for hotels?
Well, the types of innovation out there, innovation is a very broad topic. So, it's important to define what we mean by innovation. Today you turn on the TV and everything is innovation, right? The shampoo is innovative, the car is innovative, even the frozen peas are innovative. So everything is innovation. So it's important to define what we mean by innovation. So there's technological innovation, there's scientific innovation, but there's also disruptive innovation, incremental innovation. But let's, for the sake of this discussion and for the hotel industry itself, we can think of this notion of incremental innovation and disruptive innovation. Okay? Incremental innovation is that innovation that we do on a daily basis, right? It's about innovating every day. It's about making sure that every day we perfect a small process. We increase the customer satisfaction in one particular item. We improve a process in one tiny little bit. We improve the product or a service in one aspect, right? It's making sure that we are better 1% every time, right? You can say, well, that's not really very sexy, right? But I would say that it's a moral imperative. You really need to do this. If you don't do that, you're actually going to die. Because the fact is that if you do that every day, if that's part of the DNA of an hotel or the hotel industry, you'll be operating, you'll be a going concern, you'll be an existing business in 100 years. Because if that's part of your DNA, you're going to be an existing business. Because you're always improving, and if you compound 1% every day or every month, that's a lot of innovation in a year or in 10 years or in 20 years, okay? And so I would say that it's a mandatory innovation for hotels, improving every day, incremental innovation. Then there's disruptive innovation, which is about game-changing innovation. It's about reinventing one dimension of the business model. Reinventing, for example, who do we serve? So who are the clients that we serve, the market segment that we serve? So reinventing dramatically. So we no longer serve a particular market segment, we will serve a completely new market segment. Or we deliver a whole new set of benefits. Or we deliver those benefits in a completely different way. Or we make money in a completely different way. So for example, we say, from now on, we don't charge anything for the hotel. We bill things through a different way. We no longer charge by the day. So it's disrupting the business model in a dramatic way. And that's disruptive innovation. You don't do that every day. Sometimes you do that every decade, but it's something that you need to pay a lot of attention to. You need to invest in that, because the thing about disruptive innovation is that somebody's going to do it, okay? Someone is going to disrupt your business model. And so it's better be you, otherwise someone is going to do that for you.
So, but from capturing ideas to actual implementation, lots of steps has to be taken, right? So where can you see the biggest opportunities within the hospitality?
So that's a great question. So I would say that, in general terms, the innovation processes across pretty much every industry, they have sort of a pattern, okay? I would say most innovation processes, they follow sort of a sequence. They will all start with a phase that we would call generally a discovery phase, right? A phase where you look at the world for insights, you look at the world around you to get insights around consumers. You know, you do observation about consumers. What are they looking at? What are their needs, unattended needs? You look at trends. You look at orthodoxies. You look at competencies. You look at technology. So you start looking at the world and you try to build a point of view. You try to get some insight. You try to get some food for thought, right? That's a discovery phase. Then you have another phase that you would call ideation. It's where you use those insights, those stimuli, to generate ideas, right? So you use those provocation to generate ideas. And then you use those ideas to elaborate them into proposals, into, business propositions, into innovations, right? You put some meat around these bones, right? And that's an elaboration phase. And then once you have an idea, you say, well, this is an interesting idea, this is a potential innovation. Then you go to another phase that you would call prototyping or experimentation, where you see, well, before launching this, let's try this on. Let's see if people will actually be interested in this innovation. Let's see if this works. Let's see if we can make money out of this, right? The three things about experimentation. If people want it, if it works, or if we can do it, and if we can make money, right? And finally, to scale it. That's the last phase of the innovation funnel. If it works, if everything passes, let's launch it, okay? So these are the steps the general steps of an innovation funnel: discovery, ideation, elaboration, prototyping or experimentation, and then scale it. Your question was, out of these phases, what are the ones that are, the ones that represent the biggest opportunity for hospitality? I would say that, all of them. So hospitality needs to go through all of them. But I would say that if you compare hospitality with other industries, I mean, hospitality has great advantages on two of these phases. So I think it has they are at par with all industries, but then it has huge advantages on two of them. First of all, discovery phase, okay? The first phase of all. Why? Because, hospitality is a face-to-face business, right? It's one of those rare industries where you are face-to-face with the end consumer, where you have the opportunity to serve the consumer, to observe the consumer, to understand their frustrations, their expectations, their happiness, their needs, some of the unverbalized needs, right? And so it's a great source of insight, right? They are feeding you with their insight, okay? So the big question here is, what is the hospitality industry going to do about that? And to be honest, I would say, in all fairness, that you are not doing a lot about it. To be honest, I think we at the hospitality industry need to learn or relearn how to read our customers again. So we need to reprogram ourselves to start listen and relearning and start observing our customers again, because it's a great source of insight. I work in the software industry. I don't have that. I don't see my customers on a daily basis. I cannot observe them. You in the hotel industry, you can, and that's a big advantage. I would say that the second one is in the experimentation phase. Once you have, a potential innovation, the fact that the hotel industry is a very spread out, you have different, hotel units. Instead of launching to every single unit, you could experiment, right? Let's test this new menu. Let's test this new bed. Let's test this new marketing plan. Let's test this new pricing plan. Let's test this new F&B concept. Let's test, you can test on this particular unit. You don't need to launch it all. I cannot do that in software, you see. So you have a great advantage on prototyping and experiments.
And how can senior management adapt to change within and outside the hospitality industry, in your point of view?
Well, I think to stay ahead in this innovation business game, I think senior management needs to pay attention to, I think, 3 key dimensions. One has to do with setting the right direction in the organization. So making sure that innovation is really not just a fad, a management fad of the week or the month or the year. Now it's innovation, next year is sustainability, and next year is about stakeholder engagement. No, it's innovation as a means to an end, and this is really part of our principles. It's part of the purpose of the organization, and so making sure that this is for real, and that is really part of the core of the organization. So that's I would say one of the key dimensions, and not many organizations really embody that, or at least senior management and the leadership embodies that. The second one is setting the right processes, tools, methods. So it's not just about saying, now we are going to embrace innovation and then not setting or wiring the organization. You need to do that, right? You cannot say to the organization, jump into the innovation swimming pool and not telling them how to swim. You need to learn how to swim. You need to train your organization on how to swim, right? And so it's quite important to provide the tools and methods and train your organization on how to innovate and create that wiring of the innovation to make sure that it really happens and delivers tangible results. And finally, there's an element of rewards recognition. So people are moved by incentives, right? So every day people come to work and say, how am I going, even if it's not a very rational exercise, it's always there. Yeah. People are moved by incentives. They are, and not necessarily material incentives. No. They ask themselves, how am I going to be measured today, or this year, or this quarter? And so, if innovation is not there, they are not going to invest that time, really. So you really need to make sure that there is recognition that in their metrics and their performance, that innovation is measured in some way, and not necessarily, how many ideas or how many workshops you attended, but for example, how have you contributed to differentiation? How have you contributed to growth? How have your projects brought anything innovative? Really tangible stuff. And I think senior management has, a fundamental role to make that happen.
Your company is all about engaging employees, right? So how will employee engagement change in the future? And how can hotel adjust to that, the hotels?
Well, that's another great question. There's the crystal ball answer and there's the tangible answer. And I'll just give you the tangible answer. Okay. There's some interesting learning, recent learning from Gallup that brings two very interesting insights. The first insight is the correlation between engaged employees and shareholder return. Okay? Companies that have high engagement levels, employee engagements, they consistently have higher shareholder returns. Okay? And that's quite impressive, the correlation. Okay? The second insight that this Gallup report shows is quite shocking. It shows that more than 2/3 of employees globally feel that are not engaged or very low engaged. So it's between low and really bad. Okay, so it's not. I'm not talking about engaged and very. So it's between low and very bad. So more than 2/3. And I would say that this has reached almost like an epidemic level, right? It's an epidemic level. People are unhappy. People are unhappy with the work that they do. And by the way, big red alert, this is actually where they spend most of their time, right? And so, what does this mean for us? And what does this mean for the hotel industry and for the software industry and for pretty much every industry? There is going to continue to be a competition for talent, a competition for people. And so, who's going to win? I think this applies for the hotel industry, but applies for every other industry. It applies, the ones that are going to win are the organizations that will be able to engage their employees. And there's many ways to engage their employees, right? It's not just about money. It's not just about, it's certainly not just about creating the most innovative company, but it's a combination of all things. It's about creating an interesting employee value proposition. Our take and our contribution as Exilo is about creating, an innovative environment, an environment where employees can have a saying, where employees can contributing with their ideas, with their experience, with their humanity, if I'm allowed to say that word, not just their ideas, but with their experience, with their humanity, and that they feel that they can deliver more than just their job description, but that they can actually contribute to the future of that organization, that they can actually see that whatever they are contributing has an impact in the organization and in the environment and the world around them. More and more and more, we feel in our clients that really affects employee engagement, and that really affects the results of the organization.
You, of course, are a frequent traveler. What are the biggest obstacles when booking or staying at a hotel? And what do you think could be learned from innovation in that sense?
Well, I would say that I'm a very peculiar traveler because I'm a different traveler depending of the context, right? So I can be a very functional traveler. Sometimes I just want a place to get some rest, and so I can be very, very flexible. I just want to get some 2 or 3 hours of sleep because I'm in the middle of something and pretty much anything will do. I can be, just like last weekend, I just ran the Berlin Marathon, and so I really wanted a place that was about location, so I wanted someplace close to the end of the beginning and the end of the marathon, but at the same time that had a spa close by, so there was, But then sometimes when I'm on weekends, I really like some level of luxury. If I'm going with family, I prefer to rent through Airbnb a large apartment in a historical part of town. So, big challenge. I'm an individual with different needs, right? And today, depending on my needs, I am going to different channels to give my business, right? I either go directly to one of my hotels websites, or I'll go to booking.com or Airbnb, etc. So big challenge, big innovation challenge. There must be an opportunity for someone to capture all these needs, right? I guess there must be an opportunity to capture all these needs. I would say that a lot of people say, well, that's impossible. Well, it's impossible until it gets done. Yeah.
That's true. Final question, and to close this conversation. Will the hospitality industry remain a sexy industry in the future to work for? And what needs to happen to ensure that it remains a sexy industry in the future?
Well, I think the answer is yes. The first part of the answer is yes. I think it will still remain a sexy industry. All my friends in the hospitality industry, all the friends that I have, and I have very good friends in the hospitality industry, they are very classy people. They are people of good taste, and so I think that will perpetuate over time. There are big challenges. There is a lot of price pressure. There is a lot of new entrants. There is a lot of new offering that sometimes contaminates the whole ethos of the original ethos of the hospitality industry. But I'll give you an analogy, which is with wine, right? With wine, wine was also somehow a sexy industry. We can't forget that hotels is about beds, but wine is about farming, right? But there's a sexiness around wine. It's about farming. It's a sexiness around wine. But there's also wine in Tetra Pak carts, right? There's wine with plastic caps. There's nothing sexy about that, right? But there's always going to be people for that particular segment, which doesn't undermine the sexiness of the industry, the wine industry. And so I think that the sexiness of the hospitality industry, the fact that leisure, the fact that individuals and consumers will continue to want to be pampered and cared of, that will remain unchanged for centuries to come. And so I think that will remain unchanged even when we start opening hotels in the moon.
Thank you very much, Pedro. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.